panelists, Natalia Neshta. Am I saying that correctly? Neshta. Neshta, the director of the movie. Yes.
But she's too emotional. I was just almost crying here as well, so we are here together.
And also we have Bakonyi from the Hungarian Helsinki Committee. Thank you for coming. And Victoria Radványi from Budapest Pride. And I would like to start the discussion with you. And I think it's up to you if you would like to start with maybe your story, or we can just talk about some about the movie. So, what should I start with?
Maybe first it's would like to thank you, all of you being here. It's very important that you here with us, and we can share our stories with you. And thank you for showing your support. And just thank you to Victoria and Budapest Pride for inviting us here, and for all the great work you've done. And you keep doing this, and it means so much for all of us, for our community, for our country, and you will be always in our hearts forever. Thank you again.
Well, thank you for coming. So then I will start with maybe asking you to tell us something about the situation in Ukraine before the war, before Russia attacked, and how was it for you to live there as an LGBTQ person?
To be honest, you won't understand how your life was before you start to understand how it could be. Because when the war started, the minutes of quietness were like, you could feel like your tears will break down, because you see you look at the sky and you pray for all gods. I'm not religious, but you are praying that it will be quiet and no missiles and jets will be flying. And before you experience this, you won't understand how you can cherish this every moment. So this is it was for all of us, not only for LGBTQ people, but for our community as well. We had our challenges like in many other countries, and many organizations were working consistently on improving our rights, and slowly we've seen it ourselves when the LGBT movement in Ukraine started to grow, started to be more visible, and when we had our also Pride in Ukraine, first it was in Kiev, and then in many other cities, started slowly, and we were working towards making it much better, and it was much more easier to be visible, and the media and the parliament, everyone were slowly going towards the recognizing our rights. But the war cancelled like all the achievements. Now it's war is #1 topic, obviously, and many like in every society, LGBT community in Ukraine as well is very diverse, and we have all different. Like some went to fight and fighting in the army. Some don't want to fight, and they say I can't do anything. Some had to leave the country. Some had to stay. We all were all different, but in many ways we are the same. We love our country no matter what, and I think that this is what would unite all of us.
So my second question is about your experience fleeing Ukraine and getting to Berlin. How was that for you, and how, like personally, but also how did it look like? How did you get there? What type of yeah, I think you get it.
Thank you. It's quite a story. Though I'm not like I used to travel before, and it seemed like traveling to another country, just another travel, but it was absolutely not travel at all. First of all, we lived on the outskirts of Kiev, and when the war started, I remember it's first early morning. I was like always on the news, and we kind of had expected that something might happen, but you never believed that this might happen. Like, what on earth could you think someone could do this? And then in the morning I wake up and I hear these explosions, and it could be something else, but with my heart I could feel it. It just was the war. The war started, and then I went to check the news, and yes, it is. It's not only in Kiev, it was in all other cities, explosions, and it started. So, but we didn't want to leave. No one would think that it will last so long. We thought like, okay, now we're gonna fight maybe like for a few days, and there's a land, and this can be happening. But on the first day, everyone, you go out on the street and you see people crying. You see people running to buy food, getting some medicines. People knew that they will need this. On the second day, everything was closed, and we had it continuing. The jets was flying, more bombings and more, and everyone was afraid even to go out because they knew they could get in trouble. And we stayed there for a few days, and just we thought that we will wait for what will happen, maybe get some guns or something to protect ourselves, or go to territorial defense or whatever. We didn't know what to do. And maybe we thought we could go outside to the Kiev, because we knew that we were on the outskirts, and it would happen same as with Bucha. A friend of us gave us a car, and we went to Western Ukraine, and then our Kiev Pride helped us to go to Budapest, connected with Victoria, and then we had a friends in Germany who met us there, and we find safe place. Like many heroes of our film, we wouldn't know what will happen to us, so we didn't have any purpose, just to maybe stay safe and then see what happens. But we found great friends here in Budapest, and it was an exhausting journey, very difficult journey, and then to Berlin. But yeah, we made it, and our hearts go with those people who stay in there, and we keep in touch with them. And everyone, like you've seen in the movie, maybe would want to go home if it's possible, but it's not finished yet.
Thank you so much. I will ask Anikó now about your work at the Hungarian Helsinki community, and how did it change when the Russian aggression started in February?
Well, what is it switched on? Maybe not, huh?
I think.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what we do is we provide legal assistance to people who have to flee, independent of where and why they have to do this. And you know, when the war started, the first day, we decided to go to the border to see what was actually happening there, like how many people are coming, because we understood that there was no information available. I first tried to call the border stations to see whether the Hungarian border guards are letting people in, and it wasn't clear if it was possible to enter, so we wanted to see with our eyes if people can actually come to Hungary and then, you know, seek refuge here. And next day we went, and then we saw that people were coming. And what we have also seen, which was really nice, is lots of Hungarians went to the border, and then they were trying to help people. They brought food, water, and then they were also organizing other people's travel to places. I think the first people who arrived, they had acquaintances, friends, family in Hungary, so they had places to go. And then we started producing materials for people, how to get protection in Hungary, what to do if you want to stay, what kind of rights you have, what services you have available. And then we started visiting places like 5 days a week, different shelters, where Ukrainians and also non-Ukrainians fleeing Ukraine were accommodated in Hungary. Because Hungary doesn't have a functioning asylum system, because the government decided to destroy it with, you know, tedious work during the couple of last 7 years. So there were no camps to put people up, which is in a way, you know, it's bad and good, because it's not so nice to be in a refugee camp. It's better to be housed at someone's place, or to be, you know, in a hotel or some other, which more resembles someone's home than a refugee camp. But at the same time, it was a problem at the beginning, because there was no place for all those people arriving. So lots of people were put up in school gyms and let's say workers, shelters, so not always very ideal solutions, but you know, when you have to flee, that's anyway very far from ideal. So I think there was lots of help available, and we also opened a hotline, a special email address. We had lots of people coming all the time, so it was, you know, high speed. Like, we were doing all the things we normally do, but we were doing it like all the time, basically. This is the first few months, I think. So that's what we do.
You kind of started to talk about my next question, which is about what are the difficulties that the organizations helping refugees from Ukraine in Hungary. So what are their difficulties, who are trying to help, like other than not having a functioning system?
I think what's difficult is that, you know, so there are lots of actors who want to do something, and what was missing at the beginning is that some kind of coordination of all the activities. There are lots of things people need when they flee. Like, you know, if you think of your own life, like how you live now, what are the things you need for everyday functioning? I think those people who have to flee, they exactly need the same things, except they don't have their own house, their own workplace, their own money, because let's say their bank cards no longer work, or they don't have them, they don't have papers, because they couldn't bring with them, because they, you know, like one of the persons said, they just had to flee in whatever they had on. So it's a very extraordinary situation. And then there are lots of people and many organizations who want to help, and then these services need to be coordinated, and that was very much missing, and I think it is still missing to some extent. But there is, you know, the organizations who do the assistance, I think they cooperate a lot with each other, so I think that is helpful. What is not so helpful is that still, you know, what the government should provide, let's say the asylum system, the way people register for protection, it's very much understaffed, and then people have to wait a lot. It's very difficult for them to understand what's happening. Many times there are no translators in the office, so many people don't know how to write in Latin letters, and then how can they fill in the form for protection, you know? So these very simple things, which could be resolved if there was a will, I would say.
So I think we understand why most of the refugees are not staying in Hungary, but why is it that they are going to, let's say, Germany, where I guess they have a different legislation and different system for helping these people?
There is no different legislation. The legislation is the same everywhere in Europe. So temporary protection that's provided for Ukrainian citizens and their family members fleeing Ukraine, it's the same everywhere. I think what's different is what happens to non-Ukrainian citizens. It's up to the member states how they decide on them. So I think the legislation is almost the same everywhere. So that's not the problem. I think the problem is, it would be interesting to know why people are leaving. We don't know exactly. We just, hear from, this person, that person. I think language is a problem, And people are more likely to go to a country where at least the language comes from a Slavic language family, let's say Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, where at least you understand something. Hungarian is an obstacle, for sure. We also don't make it easier with the lack of translators in offices. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is that maybe there is a more welcoming attitude from the state, I would say, because this time people are welcoming here. There is a lot of solidarity, which is nice to see after so many years of hate mongering and, expensive government propaganda invested into, fearing refugees and all other people. I think that's very nice to see and refreshing for us, actually. But so there is probably a more structure to assist people, like a functioning asylum system. For example, in Germany, I'm sure it functions much better. There was no attempt to destroy it, and the state invests in keeping this up. So I'm sure that's also a contributing factor. But the person with red hair who had the leg broken, like it was sad. Many times it's your friends and family that drives you. I think the motivation of where to go is very individual. Maybe it's not even the language. You want to be where your loved ones are. So, and then there are much bigger immigrant communities in other European member states than in Hungary. So then people gonna go where their loved ones are. So I think that's the main motivation, I would say.
Thank you. I will turn to Vicky now.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm destroying your moderation. Natalia, can you tell us why did you, because I don't know the reason, why did you choose Berlin specifically?
There is a story about the cat.
Oh yes, the cat, yeah. How's the cat?
It's a cat story, actually. Cat brought us to Germany. We found a shelter first in the western Ukraine with a friend of Tatiana. She is a doctor, and her daughter was living in western Ukraine. They are Ukrainian family, but her daughter was studying in Ukraine, and they had a cat. And when the war started, she was so scared. She had to flee, and somehow she lost her cat, and cat was found. And our mission was to bring the cat to Germany to our friend who gave us shelter there. And she said, you can stay with us at least for some time. So because everyone was scared, and she was shouting at us, please get out of there. I want you to be with us and be safe. And we trusted her and went there. So the cat found the beloved owners, and he was like helping us to release the stress as well. We're hugging him, and oh, you are so great. And he was a real hero. He was like taking out, was very quiet and very calm, and didn't make any troubles. So that's how we made it to Germany. And then in Germany we were met by by wonderful people like LGBT community, like lesbian groups out there, and they are just amazing. And they just made it all safe for us as well. So they helped us a lot. So this is how it happened. And as you said about why people stay in Germany at some point, because of the LGBT community. Because we went on the march to support Ukraine on one of the days, and we found so many people we knew in Ukraine, about activists, LGBT activists there. Oh, we didn't know you were here. So hello, we didn't know you were here. And it all happened nobody was really planning. Just somehow happened.
we can see some scenes in the movie where people are marching and using the I don't know what's that called. So that's for a solidarity march, and that's for
actually one of the scenes it was from Marsan Pride, but we had many others like happening every week and during not many days, many occasions. We try to support Ukraine as much as we can, and as well right now, you know, it's a lot of events happening in Berlin.
So thank you, and thank you for the question. But my question for you, Vicky, is Budapest Pride started acting and reacting to the situation really fast, and you were a key actor in that. So why and how did this service started at our organization for specifically LGBTQ refugees?
So I think it started as hectically as it started in a lot of other areas in Hungary, because there are like NGOs like Helsinki Committee who have this like decades of experience and like vast expertise in the field, and you just like knew what you want to do and you had your focus and you were just like doing, and we were like on your website like 24/7 in the first few days, like, oh my god, there's a new know-how from Helsinki, let's just quick read. So we are really thankful for those documents. We were not on this side of it. We have never done humanitarian aid, and we didn't have much idea on like what to do. We were just like really scared. And I remember the morning, I think it was February 24th, and in the morning like the news were coming in, and we were on the Slack channel of Budapest Pride, and the whole team was like I never thought this is gonna happen. Like it was for years, it was in the air, but as like somebody pointed out in the movie, like, oh, Russia's never gonna, you know, fully attack Ukraine or invade Ukraine. It's just, you know, stay in this like toned down phase, and everybody was just very, you know, petrified. And I don't know if it's, I think it's like a natural human reaction that you want to know what you can do, and it's like almost like a way of coping with such horrors that you want to find how you can be helpful. So the first thing was that we just gathered resources, and we were like posting these resources on our website and on our Facebook page, and we were also really afraid of how the Hungarian government is going to handle the situation, because it was 7 years ago already. Oh, it's so long ago. It seems like yesterday. 7 years ago, with the Syrian refugee crisis, it was really terrible to see how the government was like dehumanizing refugees and migrants, and I think maybe a lot of people can like sympathize with this, that our first fear was that it's gonna be the same, and I don't know, we will be having billboards that Ukrainians want to take our jobs and whatnot, and we want to do some preemptive communication, and I think our first communication was that we have to help, and that was the whole message, and we were just like posting things for our followers of how they can help and how they can involve and where to donate and where to volunteer. And meanwhile, we were already updating this list of like resources available for refugees. And in the first, I think, week, there were like a lot of companies that offered free services or free accommodation and whatnot. And in the meantime, it was very touching to see how the LGBTQ community acted, and we started to explore what we can do. So firstly, we talked to some of our partner organizations, Háttér and Transvanilla, and asked, what are you doing? Because we knew that we have very minimal resources, and we wanna help well. We don't want to be a burden to anybody. So we asked Háttér and Transvanilla, what are you doing? Okay. So we are gonna try to fill in the gaps and try not to overlap with other organizations so we can be effective. So they were doing, the legal aid, the HIV peer support, the trans peer support, which is wonderful. So we started focusing on travel aid and short-term accommodation, long-term accommodation, and just purchasing services and providing LGBTQ inclusive mental health support and stuff like that. And in the meantime, we were contacted very, very rapidly by activists from Romania and Moldova and Poland, and Slovakia and Czech Republic and all these neighboring countries, and all these activists were like kind of in the similar shock and like instant response state as we were. So it was very valuable to exchange some ideas and knowledge, and everybody I remember we had this Excel sheet that was updated I think every hour about every single border crossing, and the people were updating the wait times, because in the beginning there were like these huge waiting times at every single border, and especially at the Polish border where most Ukrainian refugees were going to Poland, and we just like try to organize how people can get here. And what we've found that like most LGBT refugees who reached out to us wanted to go to Western Europe, and I totally understand that if somebody's like end destination is not Hungary at this current state. And yes, most people wanted to get to Berlin or to Amsterdam or to Copenhagen. These, I think, someone was going to Madrid. These were like the most popular destinations, and we were like constantly talking to Ukrainian organizations, and that's how we met. Actually, like we were talking to Kyiv Pride about like what do you need, how can we help. So we like kind of established this hotline where we can pass on people's contacts, and we can organize where to meet the people who need our help, and we also try to establish contacts in those countries that the people we help are aiming for. So it's like more ideal if you have somebody waiting for you at the train station or at the airport to pick you up and at least take you somewhere or help you find your way. I think that was like fairly typical for the Hungarian NGO scene, how we started out, and then slowly it started to settle down, and we like kind of found our way of doing these things. And also an important reaction is that we partnered with Szezgyár, which is, if you don't know it, it's a very cool like eco-feminist community place, and you should go there. It's in the 8th district, and before the war, Szezgyár was operating on like serving vegan meals and selling vegan meals, and the coordinator of Szezgyár, Anna Margit, really wanted to do something, but she didn't have the organizational background, which we kind of had. Like we are not like a big organization, but we had something. So we figured that we should do like a community center there where people can go, people can just hang out without spending any money, have a coffee, have a meal, use the Wi-Fi, meet other people. And that was, we also wanted to, not just to provide, just what you mentioned, you don't just need like food and water and the roof over your head and medicine to survive. We have so much more needs, and it could be like really, really terrifying to arrive to a country where you don't speak the language, you don't know anybody, you don't have any connections. You don't know, I don't know how the public transport works, you don't know how the phone system works, and we want to have like a place where people can meet other people who are in a similar situation. So that's why we set up the community center in Szezgyár, which is still going on, and there are a lot of good events, and you should go there.
So you're answering all my questions.
I'm sorry.
It makes it easier for me.
May I say?
Yes.
Like Victoria, you and your team were like angels for us.
Right.
Just, I'm telling from my refugee experience. Like guardian angels came from heaven and gave their hand to support, and your hand were holding our hands, and we are walking with you all this
You're
way.
gonna make me cry on stage.
No, it's true. It's just my experience, what I could feel. Thank you.
Or just like one thought, if I can add, that I haven't had much instances in the past few years when I could really feel proud to be a Hungarian. It's not a very usual experience, but like especially the first weeks of this crisis response, and when like you were talking about it, I was like reliving these experiences, that I was so proud to see that how many Hungarians were like stepping up. And when we went to the border to Záhony to pick you up, and we saw like so many people just like handing out sandwiches and I don't know, setting up tents, and this was a moment where I could like really say this of like a community that is reacting to this crisis this way, and that was very, very heartwarming.
So I will turn to you again, Natalia. How is it now in Berlin? How is your community, and yes, how was, do you fit in, and yeah, your experience basically there?
There are two parts, at least, like you mentioned before, the government and the community itself. So, maybe comparing to other governments, it's Germany government much have a better response in many cases, like documents and everything. But yeah, like for a refugee, no matter like which country, everything seems like so many like stupid questions here: how to how to take a bus, or what to do, what to ask, how to ask something, how to buy food or how to get the food. It's these questions really like appear to you and you don't know what to do. That is what's important when the society responds with help and kindness. And like I would say, in Berlin, it would be my experience and experience people who I know, who we met. Yes, difficult to get accustomed to a different country and to the rules and everything. But what helps is our community who reached out and given advice what to do, how to apply for something, and most important, this is emotional support. Because like when we arrived, we couldn't do anything, and the most I wanted to be quiet. I couldn't talk even. We had friends from lesbian community who was just coming to us and holding our hands and hugging and saying, "Okay, let's go to the park, let's go somewhere, and it will take you away from some time from the grief, from the stress." And this is what really was like a help. So, like for many others, it's support from all sides, and yeah, it's and plus and minus. First of all, like one of our heroes said, I planned to travel a lot, many different countries, but not in such way. It's kind of like something. Maybe you would want to see different countries, meet other people, but maybe on other occasion, like to share the happiness, to share some nice activities, like but not the grief, not the sadness, not the tragedy, which continue every day. Every day keeps going, and we have friends staying there, parents. Like one of our heroes, he had a mother. He couldn't talk to her for 3 months. He was holding his phone and looking into his phone and waiting for her to call. That's this poor boy. We had a friend who was in Mariupol under bombings, and when the war started, she said, "I'm here on the beach, and I'm going to give them a good fight." She had she's a cat lover, and she said, "I'm going to fight the Russian army." And afterwards, we lost touch with her, and in 2 months, she appeared on the phone, and she said that she was all the time under bombings and experiencing everything, but she couldn't talk. Like she said it in short, but she couldn't give interview or anything. So many more stories to come more afterwards. And talking about Berlin, coming back to Berlin, yes, this is a great city to be. And I said to our friends who met us at the station as well, who gave us a ride, that every city is a great city where you have friends, where you have every city is a people. So if you have friends, if you have someone to talk to, someone to hug, someone to share your thoughts, this is a great city.
And did making the movie help in the process? How was that process? Finding people, talking to them?
I guess the movie helped me the first, and people who we talked to, even for those who said I can't talk, it helped them as well, because like Victoria was like saying, guys, we need to make the movie. It actually was her idea. She called me and guys, please, if you can do this, please do that. And I had to fight myself as well, because like so much stress when you just at some point say no, I don't want anything, just people are dying there, I'm alive here, what I'm doing here, you know. But you made me come back to think that this is my duty. This is my duty as a filmmaker to share what we have there and to tell the stories of people. Yes, it was difficult. Difficult was that many of us still experiencing stress and can talk or can talk privately, but I don't want to share it with others because they might think that no one will understand, or maybe it's too private. But yes, we made it, thanks to your support, and I think this is a turning point for me, for myself, and for our heroes as well, to start fight this. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Would you like to add something?
Can I say something for this? I think it's so important that you've made this and you captured this moment, and I think it's really nice the way people talk about this. And it's very, like, I know it's maybe not so nice to say, but from an educational point of view, this is so relatable because people share their personal experience. And let's say we are invited sometimes to schools to talk to children or students about fleeing and what the experience is, and people can see from this that no one chooses this. And then, you know, really nice, some of the things I put down, how people were talking about this, how you don't appreciate what you have, you know, the moment, how you don't see that it's all gonna be like blown away in a minute.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that at the beginning someone said that, you know, I'm this strong woman and I still have the fear, and then I have this guilt that why am I alive and while others are still there, you know, all these things. Yeah. They teach this about fleeing, but it's much better when, I mean, not better obviously, but it's people understand it when someone says who is there, and then you can see that this is the person's own experience, so it's not from the textbook.
Yeah.
So I think it's wonderful you made it, and I hope it helps you also to cope with your own experience.
Thank you. And also, thank you for your reply. Also, the purpose was to make it that it is like shaken, without really representing like our heroes. You hear about them from them. I did not want to explain because like it's like a war itself. It makes you nobody. Missile doesn't choose who to kill. Missile doesn't choose oh, you are a warrior or you are a sportsman, I want to kill you. It can kill you, and it makes you. There is one song which was a name named Meat. War makes people feel like a meat. You mean nothing, and it learns you to appreciate every day what you live of your life. Every day can be lost, and it makes you feel everything much stronger, makes you appreciate those who are next to you, loved ones, makes you to appreciate everyone who's around you, everyone who is somewhere there. But you understand that every human being means this is a whole universe, and you get struck by the understanding that on one side you are the whole universe. You can think of so many things, you can do so many things, and on the other side, like a piece of metal can kill you, can destroy all this universe. Can mothers bring up children, and families they spend so much time. You like so many years you have to grow up to become a human being, to become someone to study, and then it can be destroyed at one moment. That's the tragedy. And what I wanted to show here are just pure emotions, what we all can connect to. I hope that.
I think you did. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, war affects everyone, but what we experienced, I think, and I will ask Vicky you this question: why does war affect minorities differently, and how is it different for LGBTQ people?
I think this was like part of the reason why we wanted to make this movie. And just to like circle back what you mentioned, I think so I was like really surprised how many people agreed to be on the film. It is very, very, very vulnerable place, like to talk about what happened to you so close to the traumas you experienced. And I think that when we were watching the movie, at least I could really feel that, you know, your heroes really trusted you. And I think that it was a game changer that firstly they could talk in their native language. And, you know, we were talking about it in our team. We didn't really want to, I don't know, hire a Hungarian, I don't know, videographer who could like go around and ask people in English, or maybe with an interpreter. That's like much less personal. And on the second hand, they know that you know, that they don't have to explain themselves. And this like level of trust is like very, very special. And I think you've captured it like really well. And so why do we want to make like or support this movie about LGBT refugees from Ukraine, and why did we start this whole thing? Of course, there were like a lot of comments on our Facebook, and actually like the government propaganda media was calling us fascists, which is not news, but news in this context. Because when we like started posting resources for LGBTQ refugees, there were some articles on Bandiner and so on, saying that we are fascists because we are handpicking refugees and handpicking who to help, which, you know, of course it's not surprising, but you know, these like levels of low can always surprise you. And when we were like looking at the comments, because of course the article was very inflammatory, but sometimes it's interesting to look how people react to these articles. And a lot of Hungarians, I think, like truly reacted in a way, but for, you know, affects everybody the same. Like, you know, like a little bit like what you said, that the missile doesn't choose. But on the other hand, I think, and this a bit goes back to how the Hungarian government didn't only like completely destroy the asylum system, but also there is like no information about what people fleeing their home country go through. And there's very little knowledge about how a war affects ethnic minorities, women, LGBTQ people, and other vulnerable minorities. And we could only like go back to research from other countries, because there's no research in Hungary about this topic. The Hungarian government doesn't even know how many Ukrainian refugees are in Hungary. They are just not keeping count. But there were a lot of research on how, you know, women and LGBTQ refugees especially experience a lot of violence, and not only from, you know, the enemy forces. There are a lot of places where a lot of people are like close and crammed up in very, very small spaces, either in refugee camps or in, I don't know, metro stations. And And these situations tend to, you know, escalate existing bias and I don't know, violent tendencies. And of course, there's like the journey itself. And it is very, very underdocumented, I think, in Hungary, but there are a lot of cases where people got hurt, people got seriously hurt. There were 2 women. We helped them to find a new shelter who were like hosted by a man who picked them up at the border, and you know, they thought that, you know, they are safe, and the man have beaten them up, and we suspect that probably also there was a case of sexual violence against one of them, and they had to escape from their host. So there are these cases where either the crisis itself is escalating, you know, existing homophobia and transphobia and misogyny, and unfortunately there are a lot of people, like, you know, human trafficking, who are like looking for vulnerable people and try to rob them or hurt them or find a way to exploit the situation. And this is the reason we thought that, okay, we are an LGBTQ organization, we have a mandate to help LGBTQ people. And now there are a lot of people fleeing Ukraine, including LGBTQ people, and we have to be there for them. And the number 1 priority was to the safe shelters, the safe hosting. And I think like 90% of the people we had, they were just in Hungary for a few days. They were like yourself, they were just like passing through the country, and they wanted to go somewhere where LGBTQ rights are fully acknowledged and respected. Like that's the I've heard that that's the biggest factor. For example, and this is like just like one example, that was, we've heard from Kiev Pride and from Gay Alliance in Ukraine that it was very shocking to them that a lot of Ukrainians assume that that as LGBTQ people, they would have more rights in Hungary than in Ukraine, because Hungary is, you know, a member of the European Union. But then they realized that, for example, trans people cannot have legal gender recognition in Hungary. It has been banned for 2 years. And to this day, still like under the war, in Ukraine, you can have your gender legally changed in 14 days. And that was a shock to a lot of people, and they really had to like readjust their plans. But, and that is also a determining factor when you choose a country. But when these people were passing through, we like created a network of safe hosts. Because like, how can we be sure that if we place someone at random people's house, that they are not gonna get hurt? And the methodology we used was to only include hosts in our network that at least one of our team members know personally. Like that was, you know, the only like safeguarding system we could come up with. And we were making the list, and every time somebody, you could apply on the internet, but we were like double checking every single person. And also we were asking a variety of questions, like what languages do you speak? Can you host pets? Do you have an allergy to pets? Can you give someone a private room or just, you know, a couch in the living room? Because it's a huge difference. And whenever a request came in, we were like really, you know, filtering for these factors and try to like prioritize the needs of the person. And yet pets was like a big thing. We haven't realized that so many Ukrainians have so many pets, so it was sometimes, you know, difficult to accommodate these needs. And that's why I loved your story with the cat. And also there were a lot of cases when the people who came didn't speak English or German or any other like very commonly spoken language, so we try to find a host that speaks at least some Russian or like, you know, just like some similar language, so they can like have a basic understanding to make sure that they feel safe. But you know, I'm sure that those commenters who say that, oh, but the war affects everybody the same, haven't, you know, met with these stories when you know, like your safety could depend on it, like your life could depend on it, like who takes care of you. And that's why, you know, the community center is also important, because it's a very, very safe place, and it's like a crucial thing even, you know, during peacetime, to be among people who you can trust. But, you know, a lot of refugees were coming with just like one tiny suitcase, or like even just like a backpack, like like they had nothing on, they didn't have any contacts in Hungary, like they didn't know who to call if they get into trouble. So we wanted to avoid that, you know, people who seek refuge or seek help, you know, end up being in contact with someone who wants to hurt them. And that is our main goal, to keep people safe.
Thank you. So I will move to my closing question, and I invite you to imagine an ideal government and unlimited resources. And my question is, how would you change the current system in this case? What would help refugees, and what would help organizations helping these people? If you would like to start.
Sure, go ahead.
For me, as a refugee, ideal government or the governments, I believe about the planet Earth government. So I would stop the war. No fight at all. I mean, why should we fight? We are human beings. The planet Earth can say, hello guys, you keep fighting. Okay, goodbye to all of us. You know, we should stop fight. We can share. Our planet Earth is so much wealth created by the nature for all of us. We can share and live in peace. That's ideal. Government would do no fights at all.
That's true. Aniko?
So we actually have such plans. We have what's so-called dream project, where we design the ideal asylum system, but I'm not going to bore you with the details. What I think is important is that I think a good system in any country recognizes the fact that no one wants to be a refugee. So the system is created that, you know, from the moment you arrive, everything's made easy, first of all, the bureaucratic part, and then you are provided with, you know, equal services as to the citizens of that country. You have the ability and the possibility to learn the language of the country where you are. You have the right to work, to study, and, you know, from day one, you can be as similar as possible to the citizens of that country. So I would say, you know, like as an approach, I think that should be the guiding principle. And that, of course, excludes the detention of asylum seekers and all sorts of other, you know, not so nice approaches that some governments employ, not only in Hungary.
Just to add to that, I think like in an ideal world, like the state recognizes like the specific needs of refugees, and that, so we use it as like refugees, but you can come from like so many, you know, countries and situations and types of conflicts, and like there's like such a huge like variety of needs that need to be attended, and I think that, you know, that should really be a priority. And also things like being a woman or being LGBTQ, or for example in Ukraine case, being a Roma refugee. That's, you know, there was a lot of discrimination against Roma refugees in Hungary. These, you know, issues are addressed, and that way then also professionals are trained in dealing with, you know, clients who might have very, very different stories and very different backgrounds, or possibly very different trauma, but of course there's like the binding factor of experiencing a war. And I think like these services should be developed with as much inclusion of refugees and asylum seekers as possible. And what I think was really missing from the discourse in Hungary is like how much we can learn from you, and how much we can learn from your experiences and what you went through, and so there's this like very weird notion, I think, in Hungary, when you know, and not in Hungary, in Europe, when so there's this discourse which is very anti-refugee, and that mostly goes to, like, you know, refugees who come from Arab countries, or refugees who are people of color, refugees who follow the Muslim religion. But there's this other discourse that looks at refugees as like an opportunity for cheap labor or something like that, which is, I don't think, to be like close to ideal either. And what I think could like be like our course of action, if we want to go on and, you know, change the world and like do the things that we do, is to really value, you know, refugees in our society because of the unique experiences and the incredible stories and the willpower and the survival, and like, you know, like making a movie about the stories of LGBT refugees, like a person who hasn't experienced that would do it completely differently and would have a completely different view on the subject, and this is what, you know, can really add to our communities and our groups, and I think if we could, you know, really incorporate these strengths more, then, you know, we could be like stronger together and more resilient together.
Thank you so much. And now I will open the floor for questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Feel free to ask in Hungarian and in English. This is the only languages that I can translate, so use these, please.
Or Ukrainian.
Yeah, we can manage that one too. Yes?
So I have a specific question. I will ask in English. I can ask in Ukrainian as well, but I will ask in English so everyone can understand. So I'm from Ukraine and I'm going home this Friday. And the problem is that I'm a trans man, and I was able to change my name in Ukraine, but I couldn't change my gender, obviously, because it's forbidden. And I have my new papers, which is in Ukrainian, and I have a new, so I changed it 1 year ago, and the photo is quite new. So I look as I look now, but yeah, I'm just really afraid to go home, because so I'm going on Friday, and then I'm coming back on Tuesday, and I just don't know what rights do I have, or how can I protect myself on the border, because even though in all of my Ukrainian documents the gender is woman, I don't look like one. So, and I'm really afraid what the border will look like for me. And I have both citizenship, Ukrainian and Hungarian, but in Ukraine it's forbidden to have two citizenships. So I cannot even show them that I'm doing my transition here in Hungary and I'm getting testosterone, because it's forbidden. Yeah, so I don't know what to expect, and I'm just asking you, maybe you have some experience with this.
Thank you for sharing your story. Maybe Aniko can answer.
So, and your Hungarian papers are?
They're the same. I couldn't. So now, at this time, I'm already fighting with the Hungarian government for years, and we are now already almost going to Strasbourg with our case.
Okay.
But I was not able to change. So in Ukrainian documents, I'm Felix with the gender of woman.
Yes.
And in Hungarian papers, I still have my dead name. So I have two different names with two different citizenships.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I have a suggestion. I'll give you a phone number, and why don't you call us tomorrow and we'll figure out what's easier to do, which papers to go with. Also, in terms of the Felix, and then, you know, conscription, I guess you are over 18 and below 60. So I think you should also watch out for that, so you would be able to leave. So we would need to consider what's best for you. So maybe let's think about it.
Okay, because if I go with my Ukrainian papers, all I can show is the document about changing my name. That's all I have. I was thinking maybe going with the Hungarian Hungarian documents all along, back home and then coming back. But again, I'm not recognizable on those papers. So.
Yeah, but then, then you won't be conscripted to the army with that, because as a Hungarian citizen, that, so we would need to think about, do you need to go?
Yeah, I mean, I have an opportunity to go now. So.
All right, okay, so maybe we'll talk afterwards.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much for... Any other questions? We have to start to use other tools to ask questions anonymously.
We can use Slido.
Yes.
Can I promote something here?
Yes, of course. If there's no question, then we're gonna finish with this one.
Oh, there's a question in the back.
Yes. Question in the back. Persze. A transz nők helyzete Ukrajnában, ez a kérdés, ugye? So the situation in Ukraine, so what is the situation of trans women in Ukraine right now?
It's been a difficult situation, and I guess Victoria as well, you experienced many refugees from Ukraine with such problems, and there was many organizations trying to help. And yeah, that was a problem because so many people couldn't cross the border because of their papers. And with help of many organizations, we managed to do that. But I think the problem still keeps going on from time to time. Every case is individual. From what I know, from what our community sharing between each other.
So what I heard from Ukrainian organizations is that, in terms of leaving the country, leaving Ukraine, the most important thing for the border guards is that your gender marker in your passport, and that's what they look at. So if you're a trans woman with like a male gender marker in your passport, they are not allowing, between 18 and 60, they are not allowing you to leave the country. And I think there's like ongoing process, and I don't know the exact details, but you can have your gender marker changed, and that's like what the Ukrainian organizations are helping trans women with, so they can make this this change, and they are allowed to leave the country if they want. Also, there was like a big problem with like medical services available specifically for the trans community. It's also a big problem in Hungary, and I think that's why a lot of Ukrainian LGBT organizations were advising trans refugees against coming to Hungary, and advising them to go to at least to Romania or to Poland, because of medical services are more easily accessible. I don't know, it sounds weird, but yeah, that's what I know, that there are a lot of ongoing issues in terms of the gender change, and also the Ukrainian border patrol. What I also heard, but this is difficult because like sometimes you get your information from like Facebook posts, and like there's a lot of like confusion around that, but I heard that in a lot of cases, after the Ukrainian border guards allowed somebody to pass, that on the other side, the Hungarian or Polish or Romanian border guards were like not causing any trouble in terms of determining somebody's like gender identity or whatnot. So after that point, they were allowed to cross the border.
Any other question? Yeah.
I actually have two questions. I'm a non-Hungarian speaker. What was the name of the Eco-Feminist Collective? That sounded like a really wonderful organization, but I couldn't catch the name.
Yes, so it used to be like an alcohol factory that was destroyed, but the place still holds the name. So it's called Szezgyár, and it's like SZEZGYÁR, SZGYAR. I can show it to you afterwards, and I can send you their Facebook link so you can go there. Currently, it's like a big garden when refugees and non-refugees are gardening together and building stuff and do movie screenings and a lot of cool things.
I actually have a second question too, just about the current situation at the border. What is it like now at the border? I'm assuming not as many refugees are coming over now as at the start of the war, but are there still people coming over, or is it still?
I think maybe you have more data than us, but yes, people are still coming, but there are not so many big lines, and it's not such a crazy thing that was in the first maybe 2 months. And what we also heard that there are some Ukrainians who are going back to Ukraine, and the activists from these LGBT organizations in Ukraine are doing these round trips multiple times, that they bring people out of Ukraine who wanna go to other countries, and on their way back they bring people back who wanna go back to the country. So it's more like a back and forth now, but maybe you have more information?
Yeah, so if you're interested only in the Hungarian-Ukrainian border, yeah, it's much less busy than before. And yeah, as you said, there are lots of people going back. So over 8 million people left Ukraine, and I think over 2.5 returned. So there is, I think, a going back and forth, because as also someone mentioned in the movie, that people want to go home, you know, that's what people want. They want to live in their houses, they want to go back to their regular lives. So if there is a small chance of return, then some people just go and take it. And then sometimes they see that this is not feasible, but there is, because of the proximity, let's say in Hungary, I think this happens, that people go home. They might have older parents, they want to visit them and then see that they are fine and then return. So there is also this going back and forth, but I think the border is not that busy. As you know, I remember those Excel sheets at the beginning, with waiting times completely crazy. I don't think that's the case anymore.
And I also heard that, and maybe Felix, if you want to share, I'm really happy to give you the floor, but a lot of Ukrainians who came to Hungary and decided to stay in Hungary, they came with the purpose that they can go back easily. And we had a refugee who we employed for 3 months at this community garden, and she just went back to Ukraine, and she wanted to come here and to work with us because of the flexibility. So I don't know if you want to share your story, I'm happy to invite you here.
I actually can share stories about other refugees because I work as a social worker. Should I?
So I work as a social worker at the organization called From Streets to Homes, and we have a lot of refugees coming in still until this day. Well, it's not specifically for LGBT refugees, but yeah, our experience that most people want to go home, but most refugees, most families see that the situation is not going to get better in the future, in the near future. So now the biggest problem is finding a long-term accommodation for the families, which is still for free because many of them were not able to find jobs here because it's really hard because of their language. And yeah, and those who were more lucky, they were able to go to other European countries where they have relatives. So most of them are already there. But yeah, there are quite a few families who are just stuck here and still need our help and the help of other organizations to help to find accommodation. So I will talk to you as well about this topic because I wanted to. Yeah, so this is how I see our situation now. So this is the biggest, probably the biggest obstacle now, finding long-term accommodation and finding jobs for refugees and for families.
Thank you. There was one more question. Yes?
Okay, so now I finally figured out my question. So in the summer break from school, I started to work at the Hungarian rail operator at Budapest Pride Fesztivál. The main problem is there aren't any translators who can translate from Ukrainian, and the people who work at the ticket offices can't even speak little English, so lots of time I need to have, but Ukrainians come to me, asks from me that how can they go to home, back to Ukraine. Till now, I really couldn't answer the questions, and that would be my question. What can I say to them? How can they return to home?
Okay, so I will just repeat the question. What can we say for people who would like to return to Ukraine? What is the safe way? Am I correct? Okay.
So it really depends what kind of documents they have. So I think it's hard to say in general. If people have biometric passports, then they can travel.
Shows me the passports.
Sorry?
None of them are showing the passports.
What passport?
Just passports.
Yeah, but there are two kinds of passports. So there is the biometric passport, and there is the one that isn't. And then if people, let's say they receive temporary protection in Hungary, then they have these little plastic cards, and then they have some passport, then they can easily come and go. If, let's say, they are still in the process of getting protection, then they can also go, but then there is a risk that the procedure will restart once they return. It shouldn't, but there is a risk, so we usually advise people to wait until they get temporary protection and the little plastic card, and that makes it, easier for them to come and go. But I think really the question is whether they have documents that, the border guard needs to see something that it's really the person, so they need to have a passport or some ID. And then if they have protection in Hungary, then together with that, I think it should be fine. But it's really individual. So if you guys have such question, you can always call us and we'll be happy to help.
Last chance for a question. Okay, then I will thank each and every one of you to... Yes, but...
Yes, I wanted to promote something, but then everything changed. So we are planning to have like a Ukrainian team at the Budapest Pride March. So please do come, and if you have like other Ukrainian friends, just invite them. I cannot give you any details, but we are working on it. But bring your flags, bring your banners. They are more than welcome at the Budapest Pride March. And we will have someone on the stage as well. It's going to be exciting. And just July 23rd, come at 2 p.m. to, I don't know what's the name of the starting place,
Drava Street and Karl Lutz Pier, Rakpart.
You're amazing. And just, have your community be visible at the Pride March. It's very important to us. That was it.
So thank you, Natalia, for making the movie and coming to Hungary with your partner, and thank you for the others to joining us today, and thank you for coming.